Hi, welcome to Life Mastery Gym. My name is Peter Schwartz, and in this video I want to share with you a couple of key distinctions about how to use neuro-linguistic programming techniques like the phobia pattern, like anchoring, like the swish pattern, whatever your technique of choice is, how to actually apply the techniques so that you can resolve anxiety. Stay tuned. In working with clients and using NLP on myself, you get these incredible changes that happen for people. And sometimes they can be right away and instantaneous, where you get something like the phobia pattern or the phobia process, or you take a technique like spinning feelings or anchoring or the swish pattern or transforming negative internal dialogue, which by the way are all great patterns for helping somebody to shift from being anxious into a more resourceful state. But in a way, my own journey with this has been the greatest teacher of all, which was I needed to find a way to use these techniques effectively to structure an intervention that would actually lead me out of the stress, worry, anxiety that I was dealing with into the resourceful state that I wanted to be in. And what I discovered for me, and I'm hoping that this will be useful for you, that it's not enough to just have a body of techniques to throw at your problem. It's not enough just to know what the right technique is, although that's important. We have to take the right technique for what you're experiencing, and then we have to systematically create an intervention for you and run through that intervention until it becomes the default mode of thinking in your mind. It becomes the automatic process. For me, what this looked like with my anxiety was it was an incredibly strong, overwhelming feeling that I would get in a very particular set of situations. And so the first thing that I want you to do as I guide you through my journey of how I use NLP techniques to overcome my anxiety, I want you to go through the steps with me now. Just think about going through them so that when you use the NLP techniques, like the ones you learn here, that you'll have a better idea of how I thought about creating this change so that when you go to do it for yourself, you'll have that experience. So the first is I had a series of triggers. I knew that in this situation, this situation, this situation, I would get that strong, overwhelming emotion. Because it was a strong, overwhelming emotion, I decided to use the phobia process. Damon did a video, I want to say a couple of weeks or maybe even a month ago, in which he talks about using NLP for anxiety. And he mentions the phobia process. And there's other videos on his channel as well, where he talks about different techniques that you can use. But so I took the phobia process and I decided to go through and run those really intense situations through the phobia process. Now, what made this very effective for me is that I was methodical about each time that I could remember feeling that intense process. I ran it through the phobia process again and again. And I was very careful to make sure you do each step correctly. Until whenever I thought about that, I couldn't get the anxiety back. But that's where most people would stop with the intervention, because this had been such an overwhelming experience for me. I expected that at some point in the future, I may run into a situation again that triggered off the old neural pathway, right? Our brains, when we learn a behavior, that behavior, if it's staying with us to this day, it's been very heavily myelinated. So we need to do something with that neural pathway so that whenever the old neural pathway gets fired off, you go in a different direction, okay? So what I did is, in addition to running the phobia process again and again and again, I then took each of those situations where I had an unwanted response, and I created a chain from the first sensation of anxiety to disassociating, seeing myself having the anxiety, and then allowing that image to shrink down into the floor, and then an image of myself free from the anxiety, being the way that I wanted to be, would shrink up, and then I would step into it. So what you'll notice here, if you've been following this channel for some time, is I didn't use one technique. I used a couple different ones, right? And I created a chain from the unwanted state to the desired state. For me, the chain goes, as soon as you feel unwanted emotion, see yourself starting to feel it, make that image shrink down into the floor. Simultaneously, this desired image of me pops up, and I step into the desired image, feel those feelings. Doing this effectively to the point where now I can't really get the anxious feelings. And it's like there's a block. Like, and this is not an accurate way to describe it, it's my experience of it, yeah? It's like there's a block that it gets to like level 1 or half of 1, and then immediately it goes into a different direction. Because my neurology has practiced this fork in the road, so to speak, so many times. And it's a really good feeling to go to the other side of that. So there's an inherent reward in there. So what I would recommend that you do is 1, make a list of when, where, and with whom do you experience your unwanted feeling, emotion, or behavior. This same technique, by the way, is absolutely useful for unwanted behaviors. You could use this for anger. You could use this for suffering states that you find yourself in. Then let's select the right technique to help you. So when you become aware of the situations in which you have your problem, what are the techniques to use? So if you have a strong internal dialogue that's just chatting to you and that's what's generating the feeling, then you're gonna wanna use transforming negative internal dialogue, right? In my case, because the feeling was so intense, I decided to use the phobia process to unwind those feelings. Other great techniques for anxiety in particular, transforming internal dialogue that I mentioned. There's also the spinning feelings backwards. It's a very powerful process for that, okay? We have to first discover what are the techniques that you're going to use to neutralize the negative response. So you do that, you neutralize the response, and then create a chain so that when you would have had your problem in the past, your neurology goes off in a new direction this time. So you have to decide what techniques to apply and then become methodical. Go through each of your triggers. Starting with 1 at a time, pick 1 trigger. And if it's an internal trigger, so you might speak to yourself in a certain way, there might be feelings in your body, there might be something that you see on the inside that triggers off that unwanted emotion. As you become aware of what that trigger is, whether it's internal or external, you go through methodically and build the chain from where you are now to where you want to be, and you run through it again and again and again until, soon as you think about the trigger, you go into the positive state. Then you go through to the next trigger and the next one. And pretty soon, the same way that you generalized your anxiety, you will now also generalize the opposite. That sooner or later, your brain will start to go, instead of that feeling, give me this one. This is not just a technique, this is more of an attitude of how to approach whatever your stuckness is. If it's anxiety, if it's overwhelm, if it's anger, if it's, whatever. Find out what techniques can you use to transform your current experience. And there's, at this point, probably hundreds, if not more, on this channel. But then create a little log in which you get really clear and specific about the triggers, about how you create your problem, so that when you take the technique to the problem and you do it methodically from trigger all the way to desired state again and again, and then you go to the next one, that by being methodical, you can radically shift the way you were feeling. These techniques work, they are incredibly powerful, but in order to get them to work for you, you have to become methodical in your approach. So if you're finally sick of having the same old negative emotion over and over again, then I would recommend to you that you become aware of how you're doing it, when, where, with whom, what you have to do on the inside to do that, and then pick the right techniques to get you out of that and then into the positive state, and then run through that again and again and again until it becomes automatic. It's okay if you don't immediately know how to do this. Damon has certifications, stacks and stacks of certifications, but even more than certifications, he practices. You know, he's a coach. He does this every day of his life, so he's very skilled at it. I'm the same. This is what I do. Other coaches who specialize in these techniques, you know, obviously, if you're struggling to do these things, instead of suffer with, you know, your unwanted negative emotions, reach out to somebody, ask for help, and you can get help with it really quickly. All right, I hope you found this video useful. If you need some help, comment in the comment section and I will get back to you. I will help you uncover what techniques to use to chain yourself out of that negative stuckness. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to get more life-changing videos like this one. Oh, by the way, you should see a link that will take you to take a assessment to learn more about your self-concept. Your self-concept, by the way, is the collection of beliefs that you have about yourself, the generalizations that you make about yourself. These are the most powerful beliefs that we have as human beings. So if you're really looking to develop that self-mastery, make sure you click on that link.